Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Joe on Joe Illustrated. It is me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we are talking today about an excellent issue of G.I. Joe. Kind of a watershed issue for the events within the pages of G.I. Joe. It's issue number 69. Ha ha ha, 69. Get it? It's the number after 68. So today, as you guys know, Joe on Joe is the podcast that we watch every episodes of the cartoon, and we also go over each issue of the Real American Hero comic book, page by page, panel by panel, in painstaking depth and order. And none of it would be possible with our great sponsors, the Movies and a Meal podcast. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie? It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. And that's the truth. Give those guys a listen. Tell them Joe on Joe sent you. They're awesome. I love having them as sponsors of the show, and I appreciate them each and every week. So yeah, guys. So we're doing. We're moving on, and issue by issue, and crawling through G.I. Joe, and I am loving it. And before we go any further, I want to send a special shout out to my buddy Dave Amiot. Dave, you're out there. You guys know Dave's tremendous work. For 1, he's been a guest on the show, and 2, he played Dr. Mindbender in our Cold Slither Behind the Rock episode. Dave's a fantastic cosplayer, and I'm a big fan of him personally. He's also a great fact checker. And last week, if you guys listened to the show, you heard that I was talking about the Persuader. I've never had the toy, the Persuader, so I've never literally had my hands on it. And the only pictures I've ever seen of it are with the gun going straight forward. And I'm telling you guys, I Googled it. If you Google it, at least the first page of images of the Persuader do not show it rotating at all. Well, Dave was very quick to jump on in a DM to me and let me know, of course the Persuader swiveled. You sound like an idiot. No, he didn't say that part, but I'm sure he was thinking it. And so thank you, Dave, for setting me straight. I really appreciate that. He's also he's always great with some good inside dope on a lot of these episodes. So, and I usually always forget to credit him with stuff and everything. So Dave, big shout out to you. Thanks so much. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, but I'm not even joking, guys. Google, G.I. Joe, Persuader, whatever. I couldn't find any pictures that had it definitively swiveled. That maybe some of those pictures, it's cockeyed a little bit, but every image of the Persuader that I could see as I Googled it had it going straight forward. Dave sent me to a YouTube review page, probably one of you guys, probably like Hooded Cobra Commander or something, doing a YouTube review of it. And yes, I didn't go deep down the video rabbit hole of it, but all the pictures just have the Persuader looking straight ahead. So for the last, 30 years, I've thought that the Persuader only did not swivel. So that's good to know. I like it. So that makes last issue even more comic or more toy accurate, which is fantastic. Well, You guys know how I like to start this show, and that is with my segment.
You were saying?
Where we go over comic books that were on the stands during the cover month of the issue we're talking about. I need to start referring to them as the cover date, as we know, because that's not the actual date. It's the cover date was the date, an old school reference to when they were trying to tell retailers when to remove this comic book from your shelf. So technically, this book was probably out. This one's cover dated in March of 87, so this one probably was actually out in January or more likely December of March of 88. So this one was likely January of 88 or December of 87. So I've explained that like 18 times on all these episodes of Joe and Joe Illustrated, so we're just going to call it as the cover date. So this is the cover date, March 88, and we're going to start at Marvel Comics. Alf #1. God bless Alf. This is the ongoing Alf comic book. It's got a great cover with Gordon Shumway, a photo of Gordon Shumway, and then the comic book version of Gordon Shumway looking at it. And absolutely wonderful. There was an issue of Alf Alf didn't run long. It only ran, I think, maybe 18 issues or something in that realm of 20-some issues. But there's a cover of it that's unintentionally filthy, and it fetches a ton of money on the aftermarket. So as we progress here and we hit that cover, I'll be sure to call it out. But Alf #1 hit the stands. Here we are, finally, Amazing Spider-Man 298. This is the first Todd McFarlane. It's also the first appearance of Chance and the first cameo of Eddie Brock / Venom. Very exciting. Spider-Man in his black costume, illustrated by Todd McFarlane. I believe written by Dave Michelini, I believe. Obviously, yeah, I'm not here to sing the praises of this era of Spider-Man, but really just the era of Spider-Man that changed Spider-Man forever. He would never be the same after this issue. So here it is, issue 298. What else is out here this week? Captain America's The Fall of the Mutants tie-in is on the shelf. Now this is where Cap, in his role as I forget, he wasn't known as he was the Patriot. Yeah, he's wearing the outfit that eventually the US agent would wear, but Cap at the time was known by the Patriot. He goes up against one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. That's always exciting. Let's see here. Scrolling down. I'll tell you what, the Marvel Wiki, you got some broken links on this page. Gonna say, McFarlane's still doing the pencils over on Hulk 341. Iron Man still chugging along on his Armor Wars, which I heard, and maybe I've said this before, I heard, but that might be what the War Machine TV show might be, with Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle doing a version of the Armor Wars where Tony's armor gets out into the world, and so it would be War Machine going up against a whole bunch of people in Iron Man outfits every episode. Sign me up, boys. I'm here for that. Marvel Age 60 has the first tease for what would become one of my favorite books, Excalibur, which was the X-Men in England, and we're a few issues away from that, but it spins out of stuff that happened in both the Mutant Massacre in X-Men and then now in the Fall of the Mutants, which is happening right now, during this era, where Kitty, Nightcrawler, they were injured back in the Mutant Massacre, and then the X-Men are believed to be dead during Fall of the Mutants. So when they're believed to be dead, those two go to England along with Rachel Summers, and they form up with Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, and his girlfriend at the time, Megan, who's like an elfish girl. This is all from Megan was from the Alan Moore stuff. And they formed the super team Excalibur. That was my first introduction personally to Captain Britain as a character, and Megan too. Loved them. I was completely enamored. I thought Excalibur was just a fabulous series. Written by Chris Claremont, drawn by Alan Davis. It was lighthearted. It was fun. It was dramatic when it needed to be. It was multiversal. They went into all the kinds of different realities, which was pretty new to me at the time. I was aware of the concept, having read a few, non-G.I. Joe comics at the time, but It was also one of the first, I think it was $1.25, but it might have been $1.50, but one of the first like over dollar comics that I read. And so I remember treating it with this respect of like, oh, it's issue number 1. So I love it. I love Excalibur. I've recently been reading the Captain Britain hardcovers, which is reprinting the original BBC Captain Marvel adventures. They're pretty funny. Written by Chris Claremont and drawn by Herb Trimpe. Did a ton of them. They're great, except he just fights like terrible people until eventually he fights some cool Merlin stuff. But it's like really bad villains because it was 8 issues at a time, so it was drawn out like an anthology. Kind of hard to get behind it if you're defined by as good as your villain is, but yeah, anyway, so we'll talk more about Excalibur as the actual issues come out. Masters of the Universe 12, this guys, this is great. This issue, and then 13, I want to say 13 is the final issue. Awesome issues, awesome covers. This one is Skeletor laughing over a grave, and then the next issue is the flip side of the grave. They both command a couple bucks on the back issue market in good shape. A lot of these toy comic books, especially toys of books that are that are in our wheelhouse, like the geek books like Masters of the Universe and everything. They were so the Masters comic didn't have the kind of readership that, let's say, G.I. Joe did. So G.I. Joe was printing, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was printing a ton of comics at the time. So there's a lot of issues of G.I. Joe out. So a lot of times the back issues don't command that much money. Not as many people were reading Masters of the Universe. So when you find a good copy of an old Masters of the Universe, it's going to fetch you a lot more money than something of the same era of G.I. Joe, because the kids that were reading it were beating it up. So that's something I always look out for. If you're ever in a shop or at a used bookstore or something like that, and you come across a really nice copy of something like Master of the Universe, and it's in good shape, pick it up, assuming it's decent, like a cheap price, snap it up, totally get it. 1, it's going to be fun. You're going to love it. And then 2, it's probably going to be a little value associated with it. I don't have a complete Masters collection. I think I'm only missing like 1 or 2 issues. But yeah, a few years back, I decided, man, I just need to get that in there. And they've gone up in value for me. So it's been nice to see. Let's see. Anything else from Marvel that's awesome? Thundercats 21, Transformers 38. Oh yeah. X Factor 26. It's the final issue of X Factor. That's probably the second issue of X Factor I ever read. 27 was the first issue of X Factor that I read. So then I remember going back and getting the previous issues. So it probably was 26, was probably the second issue. It's got fantastic artwork by Walter Simonson, Cyclops, Beast, Marvel Girl, Iceman on the cover. This is why Simonson's art, why he is an artist, just became my favorite of all time, because it was the first real, just kind of out there comic art that I was exposed to, and I just fell in love with it. I think it's fabulous. It's a great cover. It's got ship crashing into New York with those guys, standing in front of it, like posing in front of it. So it's pretty good. West Coast Avengers Volume 2, number 30. I've always hated this cover. It's clunky. I don't like it. I think Al Milgrom either drew it or inked it or both. And I respect Al Milgrom. I don't mean that as a slam. I'm pretty sure he was the artist at the time. But I've never really gotten it until now as an old, because I've just never thought about it. I never remember not liking it as a kid. And now I look at it and I go, oh, I see what they're doing. The concept of the composite whatever goes all the way back to Silver Age with Superman and Batman, the composite Superman, where it was parts of Superman and Batman, or the composite Justice League, or where it was parts of all the Justice League. They did it with, they did do it with the Avengers 2 over at Marvel with, not Mazos with Justice League, the Ultra Humanoid, the guy that was green, and he would run around with like a Hawkeye mask and a cap chest piece and a bow and arrow. So this concept of composite thing has a very rich and very respectable tradition in comic books. I didn't know any of that when I was a kid. So I just saw this real clunky looking character on the front of West Coast Avengers and was completely turned off at the time. I never really thought about it since, but when my eyes would glaze over it, I'd always be like, oh, I hate that cover. And now, literally in the moment as we're doing this, I'm looking at this going, I respect the hell out of that cover, because that's what they're doing. They're echoing the comics. They're playing the notes of the classics on that cover. I do have that issue. I haven't read it forever, but respect to that. So it's a character, an Avenger. He's got Hawkeye's face mask, Tigra's legs, Wonder Man's chest, Mockingbird's stick. It looks like Moon Knight's cape. Yeah, that might be all the pieces there, but yeah. So yeah, the composite West Coast, the composite wacko.
You were saying?
Now let's move over to DC Comics. Let's see what's on the shelf. I just finished that Justice League of America International Omnibus Volume 2. It's so good. And now I'm personally digging into the John Byrne Man of Steel hardcover stuff that just came out. And that's just it's reprints of stuff that's been reprinted before. But having owned the originals, I never picked up any of the reprints. So now getting a chance to get a nice hardcover. I'm taking the opportunity and I'm loving it. Batman number 417, 10 Nights of the Beast, first appearance of the KG Beast, ladies and gentlemen. Very cool. Russian assassin. He's got a gun for an arm. I guess technically he was in, I think, Batman v Superman. There was a character that had his name, but in no way, shape, or form was he the KG Beast. Like, he didn't look like him, didn't have the gun for an arm, the whole, everything that makes the KG Beast cool. They just took his name and slapped it on one of the characters, one of the bad guys. I think it was in BVS that he showed up, which is, hey, on the bright side, let's look at it, who created it. I think it's Jim Starlin. Yeah, on the bright side, Jim Starlin got paid, which I think he was on Twitter saying that he got paid more for the KG Beast than he did for Marvel using Thanos, which is criminal. But on the bright side, Starlin got paid, so we're all here for that. Beautiful Mike Zeck covers. If you guys have never read 10 Nights of the Beast, you totally should. This Russian assassin, comes to town and Batman can't stop him. He's really, really good at what he does. It's an excellent, excellent read. Blackhawk, Volume 2, Number 1. So this is the not really reimagining, but Blackhawk themselves. Blackhawk was an old World War II war comic book that DC put out, during the height of the war comics era. So it probably started in the late 40s, and it ran all the way up to the late 70s, early 80s. Blackhawk had a long, long run, like 200 so issues. Once again, that was Shirley Feeney during the chat. Sorry. Back to Blackhawk. This is the the post-crisis re-envisioning, and it was done by the fabulous. You've heard me talking about him before. Howard Chaykin. It's really great. And Howard writes. He writes a dry comic. He writes a dry, like, real political comic. Very typically mature, a lot of, he doesn't shy away from sex and adult themes, political adult themes too. So not just like racy adult themes. And that's what he brought to Blackhawk. And so he kind of updated the squadrons. Blackhawks are a squadron of fighters led by Janusz Prohaska, who's a good Polish guy. And it's great. And this miniseries dealt with like communist, like the communist witch hunt and everything that took place in the early 50s, things like that. It's fabulous. Absolutely recommend this Blackhawk miniseries. It's not, it's weird. Like, I don't call it like a crowd pleaser, because it's not. It's a real thinking comic. It's a real smart comic with a lot of character acting going on, mixed in with some cool aerials and stuff like that. It spawned then a regular ongoing Blackhawk series, which I think Howard wrote it. I don't think he drew the ongoing series, but I think he might have written it. That I don't recall off the top of my head, but it's absolutely worth checking out. You could probably get the mini series yourself in back issue bins for relatively cheap. I don't think they go more than $3-4 an issue. And I do believe DC collected it somewhat recently, but it's probably out of print. I would wager. I don't think that's the kind of title they're going to keep in print for very long. Let's see what else we got here. Question number 14. That's a gorgeous cover with questions face being an American flag. This is that era too, where DC was doing a lot of, to their credit, they were doing a lot of new, different titles, right? So look at a lot of these titles that are on the shelves that weren't, and you could say it's like they were branching out, or you could say they just didn't have a huge stable of successful characters, but I don't think that's the case. Like, they had a lot of good, strong characters, but we got Blue Beetle on the shelf. We've got Forever People series, Infinity Inc., which is great, but Infinity Inc. been out for a few years at that point. Here's a book called Outcasts, Peacemaker, The Question, aforementioned Blackhawks, Silver Blade, The Shadow has a series now, Slash Maraud, Sonic Disruptors, Spiral Zone, which was a cartoon adaptation. That's awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like Underworld, Wasteland, which was a mini series by Del Close. Young All-Stars, the spinoff from the All-Star Squadron. Like, these aren't your brand name, tell your parents about them comic books. These are them doing some different stuff. I think a lot of these seeds would end up in Vertigo. I think that's what gets proven. Swamp Thing is, traditionally considered like the first Vertigo comic, but Vertigo itself wasn't really a thing. Once Sandman starts, Vertigo starts within the first year, I believe, but Hellblazer's on issue number 3, things like that. So some of these miniseries are really more, and I wonder, let's look at some of that might be the editorship. Let's just real quick. I don't know. It's off the top of my head. So, okay. So anyway, yeah. So DC's taking some risks. I don't think a ton of them panned out, but that's okay. Their mainstays like Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, certainly, they're firing on all cylinders. It's funny. You don't see Aquaman doesn't have a series right now. Hawkman does not have a series right now. Flash does, certainly. Green Lantern does, but it's the Green Lantern Corps, and he's a few issues away from actually being canceled. And then he's in Action Comics Weekly for a bit, and then they start give him a new comic. So Green Lantern's on the down in a real way. Justice League they're just doing, they're on International 11, which is fabulous, and don't get me wrong, it's the best. But it's not the heavy hitters, like so they're really trying a lot of new stuff. So kudos to them.
You were saying?
And we're going to go now to what was in the theaters. March 1988. Let's see. Okay. The first movie I see out of 1, 2, 3, well, I'm aware of the movie God Created Woman because it's got the beautiful Rebecca De Mornay. And as a child in the 80s, you knew Rebecca De Mornay. She was on your radar. You know what I'm saying? But like Moving, I don't remember that movie. That was a Richard Pryor movie. Prison, I don't remember that movie. Although you had to be a young Viggo Mortensen is in that movie. Horror movie. I don't even know what that is. Switching Channels. Kathleen Turner and Burt Reynolds. Oh, with Christopher Reeve. I have seen this movie. I don't remember if it's any good. I do know what this movie is, though. And I got to tell you guys, between Burt Reynolds and Chris Reeve and Ned Beatty and Kathleen Turner and Henry Gibson, I hate Illinois Nazis. Yeah, Switching Channels. I need to watch that now. Okay, that's on my radar. That's something I need to seek out and find. But on March 11th, Stand and Deliver with the great Edward James Olmos, Lou Diamond Phillips. That was an awesome film. Pulse? What is Pulse? Off Limit? I mean, there's a lot of kind of bad movies. This is that they're burying movies time. They're not going for awards and they're not doing summer blockbusters. Although, hey, March 18th, Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach. No. Just no. March 25th, Johnny Be Good, the football movie. Anthony Michael Hall, Robert Downey Jr. I did see this recently. It's funny. It does actually hold up pretty well. It's pretty entertaining. It moves real fast. And it's a year in this kid's life, and it's pretty superficial in that regard. However, it's a pretty entertaining watch. The biggest movie of the month, though, saving it best for last, March 30th. And it's nice to see that all the other studios knew this, so they gave it some space. Beetlejuice on March 30th. Although, let's see, March 30th, 31st. Oh, that's weird. Anyway, 2 days later, 2 other movies opened. So they must have said, let's give Beetlejuice just like the Friday and Saturday take. Beetlejuice opened. Tim Burton directed it, obviously. Michael Keaton, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Jeffrey Jones, Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder, Robert Goulet, you win, you always do. Dick Cavett, Glenn Shaddix, Sylvia Sidney. I mean, Beetlejuice is fabulous. You guys know that. It has totally stood the test. Tony Cox is in this? Totally stood the test of time. It's really funny. It's really it's weirder. It's weirder than it looks. Like, it is really a weird movie, and it's fabulous. And Michael Keaton is awesome. And I'm glad. I know they've flirted with doing Beetlejuice sequels and all that stuff over the years, but I'm glad that they've not done it. They've not done a poor thing. They may eventually do it, and it may not be great, but so far they haven't. They haven't really bastardized it. They did the cartoon, but cartoons don't count. Anyway, there you go for You Were Saying. And now,
mass is ready.
we're going to dig into G.I. Joe number 69. Check out this cover by Tony Salmons. That is one of the first things we see here, guys. Tony Salmons has entered the chat. He does the cover, and he does the pencils for the book. Now, if you're not familiar with his work, it is, how would I describe it? It's funny. When I was thinking of a way to describe it, I was thinking of like cartoony or more animation style. It's very loose, but it's also gritty in that regard. Like he doesn't draw like funny caricatures. He's just got a looser style, right? Everyone's got more exaggerated movements. And then I see in the back in the notes page by Mark Palomo, it does say that Salmons, and I'm producing it Salmons, I'm presuming that's how it's pronounced, spelled, Salmons, but it says that Tony went into animation after this. He did a few books here and there, but he did end up going to animation and storyboarding, which is, I think, a real strength of his. And I think that shows throughout this book. So you've got this cover, which is a real loose rendering of the new look Destro. This is his Iron Grenadier look, where he's got the gold mask. He's flanked by a couple of his Iron Grenadiers. There's not a lot of background. That lack of background kind of matches recent covers for G.I. Joe. It's not my favorite look. I prefer backgrounds, that don't get captured. No, I prefer backgrounds that have a little more depth, have a little more story, and a little less. Just look at this drawing here. Also, I don't like the way that Destro seems to be standing on the edge of the cover. I'm not a huge fan of the framing on that. Having said that, it's bold. It's very bold. It's very Kirby-y. It's very strong comic books. And he's got this, Salmons has this like wavy line that you see throughout the book. And I don't think I'm using the IDW repros. I don't think the repros are doing his line work justice. And I haven't busted out the originals comics either, but I imagine the comics aren't doing it either. He's got a very delicate line from what I can tell. And I don't think it translates very well through, at least on the reproductions that I'm looking at. You could see the delicacy that I'm talking about. If you look at Destro on this cover, the way he puts the, I don't know, we call that strap on Destro's leg to give it form. That's that kind of wavy, delicate line that Salmons uses throughout the book to define a lot of his work. It's his style. You like it or you don't. But it's delicate. It's a softer touch, right? So I think it takes probably takes a softer inker. And frankly, it's the reproduction process I don't think is doing it any favors. So there's a lot of images throughout this issue that just don't feel very formed. They don't feel well formed. But if you look real close, you could see, there's something there. It's just probably not picked up. So we're going to run into that as we go throughout this book. And I, as we speak, I don't know if that's a product of the reproductions or if the original was this way. I haven't yet busted out the originals. They're still sitting in a long box that's staring me in the face. But I got to tell you guys, after this issue, IDW has not, this is in volume 8. They never did volume 9. Hey, IDW, You're going to make me dig out my back issues. You're going to make me work for a living. I don't like it. So let's go. Let's get volume 9 into our hands. And so we go.
Yo, Joe!
Into the Breach. With script by Larry Hama, pencils by Tony Salmons, ink by Randy Emberlin, color by Bob Sharon, letters Joe Rosen, editing Bob Harris, in chief Tom DeFalco. So now we were last, if you guys remember last issue, we were in Frozen Land. And so now we go back to Sierra Gordo. We've been to Sierra Gordo before. And it's the, South American tin pot kind of dictatorship. It's always getting in trouble. And here we are, we're in downtown Rio Lindo, and we've got Psych Out, Hawk, and Roadblock on an Ostriker. If you look kind of loosely, and this is where I go with the animation, compliments, absolute compliments to Tony Salmons on this. That the Ostriker looks like the Dune Buggy cartoon show. What was that? Hold on, I gotta Google this. What was the Dune Buggy cartoon show? I'm blanking on it. Speed Buggy, yeah, of course, yeah. It looks like Speed Buggy, and I'm not kidding. The Ostriker really looks quite a bit like Speed Buggy right here. I love it. He does give nice detail though. He gives nice, like you could tell he's following the toy. He had good reference for this, but his kind of his inflated style gives it a Speed Buggy look. Anyway, those guys are getting harassed by a mob of Rio Lindians, I guess, or Sierra Gordons. They're all screaming at the guys, and they're getting very ugly. And we actually don't know what they're doing. We just know that they're going to the American embassy. And Psych Out tells us that, it gives us a little foreshadowing for the story, the plot. Wild Bill and the C-130 are these guys' only ticket out of here, and he's waiting at the airfield for them.
Yo, Joe!
And waiting at the airport is Maverick and Crazy Legs. So they're comfortable that he'll be there whenever they get back. But we still actually don't know why they're going to the embassy. And as they get there, people are already looting the embassy. They're getting yelled at. Fascist pigs go home. A lot of suppressed hostility boiling. Here's what I like. Psych Out, the team's psychiatrist. And what does Larry write? He's psychoanalyzing these people. A lot of suppressed hostility boiling to the surface here. Larry is fabulous at actually giving characterization to people by their dialogue. This is a perfect example of that. A lot of modern writers don't know how to do that. A lot of modern writers, the dialogue could be coming out of anyone's mouth that's saying it. It could be Captain America, Iron Man, Reed Richards, all in the room, and they all could interchangeably be saying whatever the word balloon they're saying, and that's never usually the case with G.I. Joe. And this is another really subtle, fun example of it. What Larry's also good with is giving us, catching us up within dialogue about like kind of complex political situations. And there's a lot of that in this issue. He doesn't waste a lot of time. He just throws us in the mix. These guys are in the middle. We have a political uprising. Hawk is going to tell us that it was that Cobra sold a bunch of terror drones to the provisional government. The people then are upset about it. We're presuming because the terror drones were revealed to be the mind control scheme in the last issue. And Psych Out says, that, well, America did arm and train the counter-revolutionaries, so America does have a dirty hand in this, even if we're not doing the terror drone plot. And then we see that, there's supporters here and supporters. So there's a lot of political heavy lifting. Speaking of like that Blackhawk comic, there's political heavy lifting in this issue. This first page, or well, second page, I guess, is where I really started noticing that these details that I know Tony Salmons drew in this comic book, they're getting washed out. You can see there's just rendering that's just not being reprinted on this page. And I wonder if it even made it into the actual original G.I. Joe comic book. So it's too bad. It's too bad. I'd like to see the original pencils for this.
Yo, Joe!
Now, I love this. The Ostriker, they don't stop and get out. They actually drive up through the front door and do a spin out stop in the main lobby of the embassy, which is great. And you know what? If you're driving an Ostriker, why wouldn't you drive like that? Absolutely. Except Roadblock, he happens to catch. There's a revolutionary or an angry local or whatever you call it. He's standing underneath an American flag with a lighter. And Roadblock's going to go have words with him. And the guy holds the lit lighter up. He proceeds to spit on Roadblock's forehead, which, come on, man. And he's about to click, click, click the lighter. And finally he gets a strike on the lighter. And he's about to burn the American flag in front of Roadblock. Now, there's really nice camera work here. Really nice pacing. We understand the layout of this, even with the, I'd say, shoddy reprinting of Tony Salmons pencils. We absolutely understand what's happening. The camera works its way around the room, so we're not lost on who's doing what and where they're doing it. You use the Ostriker as kind of a place holder, like a touchstone to what's happening and what direction it's pointing, like where you could see by where the direction the wheels are pointing, and then reference that to the camera, and you see people heading out the door in the right direction. All this is done really, really, really well. So we get the guy about to light the flag.
Yo, Joe!
Just couldn't be a bad idea. And Roadblock, in a great panel, just takes his Madus and goes ka-chong and says, I'm obliged to be courteous and persistent. Sir, you are willfully attempting to destroy United States property. If you persist in doing so, and now I shall reduce your head to a fine red mist. And they choose to draw the deuce so that it breaks the barrier and gives a 3D effect on this page. It's really nice. It's really good. The guy who, says, well, there's looters walking out of here with, typewriters, and why don't you shoot one of them? And Roadblock in a great, this is a great character moment for Block, where he says nobody ever died for a typewriter. Now, whatever your personal opinions are on burning whatever various nations' flags, this is Roadblock having an absolute opinion on it. And in this moment, he's not going to let it go down on his watch, and I love it.
Yo, Joe!
This guy kind of assesses the situation. He thinks of his options, and we get these panels of the guy's eyes, Roadblock's eyes. The guy's eyes who get a little less committed to it. Roadblock's eyes, who's just as committed to what he's about to do. And then the guy turns off the lighter, jumps off the table, and leaves. And they say, that was a bluff, right? Yeah. If you got a call if you want to see the cards. Remind me to never play poker with you. They're talking to Roadblock. I love it. And very subtle and very cool. Block went to bat for the flag, right? In this photo, Shirley Feeney, very upset about the burning of an American flag. But in this photo, guys, what do we see? That Block cared about people desecrating the flag. They are either desecrating, and I can't tell in the picture, they're either like destroyed. It looks like they might have actually destroyed it, or it's being stolen. The photo of the president, President Reagan. Block doesn't care about that. None of the Joes care about that. No one's defending the president. They're defending the institution. And I think that is fabulous. I think that's a wonderful message for our time. The flag and the institution is more important than any one singular president. And we learned this in G.I. Joe 69, 34 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. Larry Hama taught us the institution and the Constitution is more important than any one president in this panel. Nuff said.
Yo, Joe!
Now we also now know that they're there to get the ambassador. And this is Ambassador Winthrop, who enters the chat. This guy's a weasel. I think the shorthand for weasels in comic books were drawing people with the round glasses. At least they were in G.I. Joe comics. And this guy is no exception. So we get more political talk on this page. There's a lot of political talk in this whole page. And I think it's important. I think there's a lot of heavy lifting in this issue with characters and situations that it's not like we've been simmering on for the last 6-7 issues. We haven't been spending a lot of time in Sierra Gordo. We haven't been getting to know all these various characters. So when we meet them throughout this book, there is a lot of stuff like what Hawk says. I thought it was because generations of exploitation by American monopolies and our continued support of one right-wing dictatorship after another, things like that. So that type of political commentary is rife throughout this issue and is merited to be commented on. So it's also nice talking head work too. So it does make a little bit of a slower, if you look at the action on this issue, there's not a ton of it. They get the guy, they go on a chase, they go to the airfield, spoiler alert. But there's nice work of changing camera angles to keep it entertaining. So this page ends with Psych Out and the gang. Before they can leave with the guy, they have to destroy all the files in the embassy.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, in another part of Sierra Gordo, the revolutionaries or the counter-revolutionaries, they're attacking the terror drones. And this is because it was revealed that terror drones were trying to manipulate them, right? So their tanks and stuff are rolling up on them. Now, above this battle against Cobra and the terror drones, there's a helicopter flying around. And in this helicopter, we see a silver-clad Destro. He's flying these dudes, kind of showing them what his weaponry can do, what the Mars weaponry can do for them. So this is a little hint that Destro is kind of making his move. He's not flying in a Cobra helicopter. He's not fighting for Cobra. He's actually trying to make some money off of these revolutionaries.
Yo, Joe!
Now, apparently, and this is cool, this page is the first appearance of the traditional standard Cobra Viper in comic books. It's very exciting. Thrasher and Zorana, apparently the Dreadnoks have been stationed to this particular terror drone. And in this first panel, we get a full page, we're not full page, we're talking about, it's about a third page panel, but it's a full wide panel. And there's the Vipers in that cool Viper look. So we're not dealing anymore with the Cobra soldiers with the masks, although they certainly will continue to make appearances. We're now talking Vipers, like the lowest grunt level Vipers, which you know how hard they are to get if you've ever been to a Target. You know what I'm saying? So the Dreadnoks are trying to figure out how to, they got to get out of here. How are they going to get out of here? Are they safe? Blah, blah, blah. And Zorana takes charge. I like Zorana a lot as a character. She does always take charge. She always does the more level-headed thing, the smarter thing. She's usually smarter than every other Dreadnought that's there. I forgot this is actually the start of like a 3-issue arc of them teaming up with, crossing over with the G.I. Joe team. So this was a nice reminder of that story. We'll get to it in the next few issues. So they're going to launch a fire bat to kind of get a diversion. They don't realize that Destro's up there. I mean, and I don't think they would care either way. They just want to save their own hide.
Yo, Joe!
And here we go. Destro's again trying to talk up his armament to these guys. The only thing disappointing about this, and this isn't Larry's fault, and it's not Tony Salmons' fault, it's no one's fault, is that I don't think at this time, I don't believe that the actual vehicles for the Iron Grenadiers were either designed or shared yet with the comic guys, because all of the tanks that Destro is talking about and they're trying to sell to these generals, they're all pretty generic. They're not toyetic. I would love it if Destro was flying in one of the branded Iron Grenadier toys, or if we saw the Iron Grenadier vehicles rolling up on the Cobra Terrordrome. That's going to come in later issues. But for now, this is the introduction to just the idea of the Iron Grenadiers. So the drawback is these helicopters are pretty generic. They're well made, and we see in this next couple sequence that they're very capable. They take out a Firebat, which Firebat is a dope vehicle, and pretty high tech and really one of Cobra's top tier vehicles. We see one launches on the bottom. I love this launch. This launch panel is insane. If you look at this final panel, guys, it's got he managed to squeeze in Destro's chopper shooting missiles and the launching of the bat, and then the 180 degreeing of the bat, doing a real quick turnaround to then go, to aim towards the helicopter, all in one tiny panel. It's very animated. It's very animation centric. So I'm not surprised that that's where his career took him after this.
Yo, Joe!
So we get a little showdown here. The bat is veering off against the Destro's chopper. Nothing comes of it. But while that's all being distracted, basically what the Dreadnoks were doing is they were using that as a distraction so they could get away on the Thunder Machine. And then that's what's happening. So they're fleeing. We get the Terrordrome exploding in the background just in the nick of time.
Yo, Joe!
Which is pointed out by the general. Now, Destro, he knows the Thunder Machine, and I don't think he's bloodthirsty towards his former comrades, so I think that's why he says we have more important things to worry about. It's also because the Firebat is coming up behind them on their tail. It's a nice close-up of the Firebat pilot in this bottom panel. We get a real nice close-up. Destro looks very Kirby, very metallic, very Dr. Doomy in this issue, and I love it. I appreciate when artists remember that Destro's got a metal face mask on, that either A, his mouth doesn't move, or B, it's just all metal. It shouldn't have too much expression to it. And this whole issue absolutely fits that bill. And I'm thinking about the very last page of Snake Eyes Dead Game. I'm looking at you.
Yo, Joe!
A cool bit of helicopter inside dope, right? This they give us a close up of the guys, the pedals on the chopper, like the foot pedals that he would use to stop, like to swing the back end of the chopper around and do a 180 in the chopper. That's really cool. I don't think any of us needed that. I don't think anyone was calling for like a detail. How would the guy do that? But they researched it, and I love it. And whether it's Larry writing it in the script or Tony drawing it, choosing to draw it, it's a great little detail that kind of gives this humanity to the chopper pilot, who's Destro's like right hand man. You'll see later in the issue, and you see that the copter spins, pivots, swivels, a little 180. And fires a bracket of missiles, blowing the Firebat out of the sky. It's a little more political commentary in the time, talking about who's got evidence of the ambassador, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a fun little piece, and again, this is where I wish this Destro chopper was more toyetic, where it was more defined instead of kind of a generic, cool looking, but kind of a generic chopper. This is another page too that I don't think Tony Salmons' artwork is properly being reproduced.
Yo, Joe!
Later at the embassy, they're still going through the files. So this is taking a lot longer. You got Hawk checking his watch. Roadblock is just setting up a lot of explosives to blow it up. And Psych Out, I don't think he's just keeping an eye on everything. And Psych Out notices that there's a whole bunch of tanks that are pulling up. Now remember, the Ostriker went inside the actual embassy. So they're getaway cars waiting inside, so it's not going to be. There's no risk of it getting hit before they get down there. But these tanks are starting to gather outside, so their getaway is going to be a little tighter than they expected. And again, a lot more political talk on the page. A lot more political. What's happening with the dialogue?
Yo, Joe!
Now, they've. The revolutionaries have, once they've kind of sealed the embassy and gotten enough tanks around, now they're sending soldiers in. And as they do that, that's when the Joes make their move with the dune buggy, with the Ostriker, which really is a speed buggy move. But it's crawling down the stairs, and it's great. There's something about the buoyancy in the tires here in this drawing that really looks great. It's funny, they've all got their hands up like they're surrendering. They're coming out peacefully. You hear Psych Out say 5 more seconds. And inside the ambassador's briefcase, these are the documents that link like some of the American interference to the revolutionaries. So these are the documents that they're both trying to rescue. There were other documents they're trying to destroy, so they're not taken. And these are the documents that everybody wants, the hot potato that everybody wants.
Yo, Joe!
And we get a nice kablooey. Roadblock C4 goes up. When that happens, the Psych Out punches the gas. They take off. Everyone's get 'em. The Ostriker is doing wheelies to get away, leaning into it. It's great. Good thing they got a roll bar. It's a roll bar, but you're all standing in the outside, so you're going to get broken necks when the thing flips. It's fabulous, though. It's a nice little getaway. The action now is kicking into high gear.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, at the airport, we see that Wild Bill and Crazy Legs and who is this? And the other guy, it's the pilot. What did they say? They said him early on. Hold on. Who did they say was over there? Maverick. That's right. Maverick is hanging out. They're guarding the C-130. And as they do, because there's a whole bunch of political refugees that want out. But the Joes are like, no, man, we got to wait for our people. Wild Bill's holding it down. He's like, we're waiting for our people and then we're going. But as they do that, in comes the Thunder Machine rolling up on them. And they're basically saying, we're stealing this plane. You there, get going. I don't know whether they necessarily recognize that they're G.I. Joe. They should. But they don't see anything of them calling them G.I. Joes. They actually just call it a, quote, cargo plane. So they're threatening the guys. And to their credit, Wild Bill just not dressed garishly G.I. Joe. Crazy Legs not garishly dressed like a G.I. Joe. Maverick kind of dressed like a G.I. Joe. Like he's kind of got a little outfit going on that you might say maybe these guys aren't, your run-of-the-mill pilots. But they're there.
Yo, Joe!
Oh, and the Dreadnoks, by the way, it's Zarana, Monkey Wrench, and Thrasher. That's who's involved in the mix. So as this happens, that's when the Ostriker now hits the airfield. So the Ostriker, so it's the end of that Fast and the Furious, when they're on the airfield and they got to get it. So but as they hit the airfield, the C-130's the engines aren't being warmed up. So it's not like everyone's free. The Joes were expecting them to be ready to take off. They're not. But as that's happening, Zarana puts a gun to one of the refugees' heads and basically takes the plane hostage. Wild Bill is not going to call her bluff because he's too smart. He knows that she's a Zartan. She's a lunatic.
Yo, Joe!
So now the Joes think that the engines are starting for them, but they are wrong. It's a lot of sparseness on these pages. I think that is due to, that's Tony Salmons' style. It's very loose and very open. And so there's not a lot of backgrounds, but there is one that's needed. And this page is a good example of that. No backgrounds. There's 5 panels on it. No backgrounds. Fourth panel, you do get a long shot, and you do get it sets you up for what's happening. The reproduction is terrible on this. It is not picking up his line at all. You can barely see what's happening. I don't blame the artists. It's either the current IDW repro or they're doing their best, and the original comic repro was terrible. But you can barely see what's going on. However, you now see that the plane has done a 180 and is taking off, right? So that's when we get a little background. So that's when we get a little flavor for what's happening on the page. And it works. I think it totally works. And G.I. Joe always does a lot of comics at the time did this too, and where they use different color to represent different backgrounds based on camera angles or energies that's happening. And that's certainly happening a lot in this issue. Lots of bright yellows and pastels being used as background colors.
Yo, Joe!
Now they're really confused because now the plane is just flying or driving. It's taking off, but it's heading down the runway directly at the Ostriker. So now they're like, does he expect us to board it on the... Nope. And Wild Bill just flies right over them. It does get hit on the way. They some of the revolutionaries take some shots at it, and you see some bullets flip through the bottom, I think, and an engine smokes off. The number 3 engine is on fire, so pressure's dropping as they fly off into the night sky. But yeah, the Joes are a little surprised by this.
Yo, Joe!
And now I think these are the counter revolutions. So now we got the guys that apparently these are the guys that the American military have been supplying arms to. They show up out of the jungles and they shoot the military. They're the counter revolutionaries, the guys who Villicava is trying to wipe out. They shoot some rockets at the soldiers. The Joes are able to, escape, etc. It stops the advancing army that we're chasing after the Ostreicher.
Yo, Joe!
And we see that Hawk meets up with these counter-revolutionaries. They apparently got a radio message from somebody that to escort them safely to the border. They got a radio message tipping them off about the problem. And as they go back to Rio Lindo, we see that it's Villicava and this is all the political mishigas stuff that they're trying to work out. They keep referring to the North American banana monopoly, which is like the cover front business for, I believe, the CIA is what they're trying to say. That's where America was funneling the weaponry into there. Which then Destro was trying to counter with his weapon sales. You see where I'm going? There's a lot of that going on here. It was a lot to take in when I was a kid, and it's in not knowing exactly how important it's going to be now. There's a lot that I'm reading and going, oh, okay, I get it. Like it's people within people stabbing each other in the back in various ways.
Yo, Joe!
And we get the final page is the introduction of the official Destro Iron Grenadier look. That his sergeant major is going to be like his right hand in command. This is the guy who was flying the airplane earlier. He dons the Iron Grenadier outfit for real. Destro comes out from the changing room in his Iron Grenadier outfit, and we learn that it was Destro who made the call to save G.I. Joe because Destro wants the war and he wants everyone to continue to survive it so that he can profit off both sides of it. Very smart. I love this new era for Destro. It makes him so much more interesting, and it empowers him so much. I'm a real fan of it. The final panel in this is that the plane is going down. They got the engine was shot, so the guys are gonna have to do a crash landing, which is like the next couple issues of G.I. Joe action, which is them with the Dreadnoks trying to make their getaway out of Sierra Gordo. But that's for another time because this was G.I. Joe number 69, guys. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's fun. It's a fun setup issue. It establishes Destro in his new look and his new role. There's no ninjas, so that's cool. I love me some ninjas, but I also love when we don't have ninjas. So I just enjoy it, man. So it's G.I. Joe Illustrated number 69. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.